Good evening, welcome to Ben TV. You're watching Steve Pereira on A Queer Idea, and tonight we have with us Nick Henderson from the Australian Lesbian and Gay Archives. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we talked earlier about the nature of the archives and where people can access it, but you've got some pretty exciting projects and programs happening. You're not quite just a quiet little library, you're actually quite dynamic and out there.
Absolutely. We've got a lot that we do. Well, look, we, in terms of some of our more specific projects, one of them that we're working on at the moment is working with a team from the Monash University Centre for Social Informatics. So it's called Digital Dilemmas, and so...
Digital glamours?
Digital dilemmas.
Dilemmas, okay.
Yeah, so the dilemma in the context is really looking at how we can harness digitisation for the archives and make our material more accessible. So there's two kind of streams to this project. One is looking at exhibitions, online exhibitions, and how we can, I suppose, provide a platform that gives people pathways into both the collection content, but also into some information about the history. So we have an active physical exhibition program where we do exhibitions around Australia, but we also support and provide loans to other organisations.
I was under the impression that the archives was very Melbourne specific, but actually Australia-wide.
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, to an extent, because we're physically located here, there are certain aspects about our programs that make it a little bit easier to present material here, like exhibitions or history walks. We work with other organisations around Australia. So there's other history groups.
Other cities have history archival groups?
They do, although most of, I suppose, they're in different forms. So, for example, in Sydney, there's the Pride History Group. Their principal focus has been on oral history and collecting information as opposed to collecting material. So we work with them. They presented, or we co-presented our annual history conference last year in Sydney. So that's been going for 15 years. The next conference will be in Adelaide, which is in part, well, it's in conjunction with Feast, but there's also a South Australian Gay and Lesbian Archives there.
Is there any part of the archive that you're particularly passionate about that is sexy and exciting? Like anything unusual or different?
Oh, look, absolutely. There is so many quirky material in the collection. We've got dildo moulds.
Dildo moulds?
Yeah. We've got...
From?
The dildo moulds are from a guy called Bruce Belcher, who was also known as Sister Barbarella Ars Erotica. So he was a sister of perpetual indulgence, who you may be familiar.
Okay. Yep.
So he was also an activist and a community worker. Yep. He was a teacher and a union organiser. So we've got a collection of his archival papers, which is an incredibly rich collection. But we also have some objects. And so he had for a period of time, he ran a sex toy company called L Bent Productions, I think, but essentially part of the nature of that business was principally dildos. So we've got some of his dildo moulds.
So do you ask people around if they can donate some of their more archaic stuff to you, like
look,
vintage porn? Would you collect vintage porn?
Look, we do. To be honest, we've probably got one of the largest porn collections in Australia.
There you go, people.
There you go, come along. But we do. We've got material back to the 1920s. So we've got a wonderful short film, which is actually digitised. The original nitrate film was held by the National Film and Sound Archive, but that's of three lesbians in a blue movie, a sex film. But going forwards, we've got a number of material photographs from the kind of physique period, 40s, 50s, through into the later on.
But that lesbian film would have been made for a male audience, not necessarily for a lesbian audience. Do we know that?
Look, we don't entirely know that. There's been certainly a bit of study around the audiences, and certainly it may have been principally for men, as you know, much lesbian erotica is.
Did Australia have sort of the American version of the male physique magazines at the time, the bodybuilders?
Not as much. Our kind of porn industry in terms of the publishing side, from the gay male publishing side, really only came in the early 1970s. So you had publications like Stallion, like Gay, and a few others. There was also a few ones that were just standalone photographic ones.
But there were the pulp novels, weren't there, from the 60s and the 70s?
There were. Australia didn't have much of a pulp industry. Certainly, probably the most prominent, although it wasn't really a pulp novel as such, but the cover was certainly had that effect. It was No End to the Way, which was published in London in 1966, but it was published by, so it was an Australian author who came from Western Australia, but he spent most of his life in Amsterdam writing. So, and he tried to get it published in Australia, but it didn't get published. So,
AIDS 2014 had an amazing exhibition around all of the posters and the campaign and the artwork that came out of the AIDS movement from historically.
Yep.
Was that stuff any from the archives? Or was
Yes.
that, yes?
Look, it was three components to that collection. So that was Jeffrey Grad and Russell Walsh. So they're based at the Melbourne University, and so what they did was it was an exhibition called Transmissions: Archiving HIV/AIDS in Melbourne. So it was looking at both the University of Melbourne's collection and the Lesbian and Gay Archives collection, which is quite different in a way. Ours is more personal, more activist, whereas the university's collection more related to academics who are involved. But there was different components, and then the other part of the exhibition was artists who had contributed works to a couple of key exhibitions. One was the National Gallery of Australia's Don't Leave Me This Way Out in the Age of AIDS, which was a really crucial exhibition in '94, and the other one was...
I actually saw that
it was a brilliant exhibition, absolutely stunning, and I think really groundbreaking as an exhibition. I'd love to see something similar around migration.
Any plans to do anything new?
Oh, look, absolutely. We had about 4 exhibitions actually during AIDS 2014. That was one, but we had 2 in the city. One was called Vital Signs, where we engaged contemporary artists to respond to works in the collection, histories, objects. We also did one called Gay Liberation Photography Exhibition. So there was quite busy that time. Coming up, we're working on, or we're supporting additional exhibitions. In Darwin, they've got the 30th anniversary of their first Gay Pride Festival.
Darwin?
Yeah, so we've been doing projects in Darwin for about 4 years in a very active way. So Darwin have got an exhibition, and Dino Hodge, Dr. Dino Hodge, who's based down here in Melbourne, but has lived in the Territory and also wrote the book on queer Darwin life. Did you meet any Malagas, it's called?
Did you meet any Malagas?
Malagas, yes.
What's Malaga?
Malaga is kind of, it's a local kind of, I'm not sure if it's Larrakia, but it's certainly local Indigenous language for kind of gay man.
And that was going to be, we're running out of time, but just quickly, Indigenous inclusion in the Gay and Lesbian Archives. Absolutely,
we're very, very active. One of the projects I'm working on at the moment is with AFEA, and they've got, they do with their annual journal, or it's not annual journal, it's, I think it's a quarterly journal, but we're helping them with an issue which is just HIV/AIDS related Indigenous posters. But Dino Hodge is editing a volume at the moment, which will come out in a couple of months, which is Indigenous Queer History. We're supporting Out Black and their history project. So there's quite a lot that we've been doing around Indigenous queer history.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting to know that so much is happening with the archives. It's not just more of a library.
Oh no, look, we're incredibly active. We've got lots of projects, and we're all volunteer run. So we're always looking for individuals, not just archivists, not just librarians, but anybody who's interested in the history, really. So. And
where do they go to if they're interested?
Go to our website, which is or I think you can just go alga.org.au, or just send us an email on mail@alga.org.au. Thank you so much, Nick. This has been fascinating. I'm Steve Pereira. You've been watching Ben's TV, A Queer Idea, and we've been talking to Nick Henderson from the Australian Lesbian and Gay Archives. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.